Y'all know I like to start on time. So, and it's recorded. So, if you're just joining us, thank you for joining us today. So, today we're going to introduce ourselves and then we're going to do what we would do if we were going to be in foundations. And we'll do kind of a short, embodied, guided meditation about cravings. Then we're going to ask you some questions about your cravings and we'll do some psychoeducation. We will preview foundations for you. And if anything comes up, we'll just roll with it. So that's kind of the agenda we have for today. So I am Clarissa Kennedy. I'm a registered social worker, an addiction counselor, a speaker, and co founder of Sweet Sobriety. My own recovery journey began long before I became a clinician. I navigated experience with eating disorders, alcohol use disorder, ADHD, food addiction, and opiate use disorder. So I understand both personally and professionally how exhausting it can feel to be trapped in cycles that seem impossible to break. And we are here to provide you some hope for that. So, for over a decade, I really dedicated my career to helping individuals heal their relationship with food, understand some of the neuroscience of addiction, and lately, I'm loving helping people regulate their nervous systems and really focus on building meaningful, connected lives. So, you may recognize me from the Food Junkies podcast as well. That's also something I love to do. I'm also one of the hosts of the International Food Addiction Conference that we try to host every year. This year, it's in Poland along with my fabulous co-founder of Sweet Sobriety and partner in crime, Molly Paintshaw.
Thanks, Clarissa. Yeah, I would say a lot of what you just said, ditto. You also might recognize me from the Food Junkies podcast. We also had Food Shrinks for a year with Molly Carmel, one of the organizers behind the International Food Addiction Conference. We recently had retreats in Toronto or in the Toronto area. So doing all kinds of things. My background is 2 decades as a substance use disorder and mental health therapist, dual licensed in Montana in the US. Treating all sorts of substance use disorders, process addictions, mental health concerns. And the last 7 years really focusing on food, met Clarissa, and kind of the rest is history. We designed foundations and we ran some studies. I shouldn't say some studies. We ran a study with over 100 people. It was about 120 people. We have some published, peer-reviewed published publications on that. If you ever want to know more about the statistics behind the efficacy of foundations, what we're going to talk about tonight. And I'm just really grateful to be here with you all and get to share this with you. So I'm excited to kick this off. So Clarissa is going to take us through a guided practice, and this is how we like to start every one of our sessions, whether you be in foundations or membership. We always like to start with something to regulate us at least somewhat back into our window of tolerance before we start getting into things. So
And
whenever
before
you're
we
ready.
do that, I just noticed that two of our coaches are here,
Oh,
and I would love them just to say like a
yeah.
quick hi for CJ and then Elaine.
Yeah, good call.
Hey, hey everybody, I'm CJ. I'm one of the coaches with Sweet Sobriety. I was part of the well, we didn't call it foundations then. We called it hi y'all, help me with my words. Thank you. Getting lost. I went through foundations before it was foundations.
Was
And
this the 10-week treatment audit that we did? So she was part of the treatment audit research that we did.
yes, thank you, Clarissa, for the vocabulary behind that. That was almost 5 years ago, somewhere in the range of that. And once I found my way out of the food, I went back to school and got certified so that I could help other people with their issues. I have a passion for helping people. I love resilience and hope, and I love that so much that that is really kind of the cornerstone of the way that I work with my clients. Because I do believe that there's a way out of this. I'm one of the living proof that you can improve your life by taking hold of that. And Molly and Clarissa are amazing, and I just feel so blessed and honored to be part of the team. And I am actually doing foundations with Molly this time. I'm shadowing her, so I'm very excited about that, so that I can therefore run it in the future. And I just love foundations so much. I couldn't say any more great things about it than every time it's offered. I have been at least there for a few of the meetings because I just love foundations so much. So thank you.
Thanks, CJ and Elaine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elaine Caligiuri, and I'm also a sweet sobriety coach. And let's see, I tracked Molly down in 2021 and joined the treatment audit in 2022, and have took foundations two more times after that, and then ran it for two times. So I think total, wait, three times. Once with Molly and twice on my own. So I've done it six times in 4 years.
He
Um,
loves.
I I love it. I'm a former licensed mental health counselor. So I have a background in like interpersonal neurobiology. I'm a yoga practitioner and meditator for about 40 years. I'm really into integrated functional medicine, holistic living. And so I like to blend the neuroscience, the nervous system literacy, and I just draw a blank. Oh, the ancient Eastern wisdom teachings. So that's my angle. Let's see. I have a 23-year-old daughter. I have a dog, and I'm an avid gardener and hiker. And I have way too much red romaine lettuce in my garden. I've been giving it to everyone. So everyone's eating salads.
I love it, Elaine. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with a quick guided meditation. We really try to practice embodied and somatic meditations in sweet sobriety, and that really is just to help us tune in to what's happening in the body. And this is another great way to approach healing. So, cravings come in many forms. Sometimes they arrive as food noise, sometimes restlessness, sometimes just this longing to like escape or numb or soothe. Maybe it's even just this desire to distract or fill a void. So, for the next few minutes, I want you to think about a craving. We're not going to fight the craving. We're not going to give into it. We're just going to learn how to be with it. So, let's begin by starting to just find a comfortable position. You can let your feet connect with the floor. Let your body be supported by the chair. And let's just start by taking a breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And if it feels safe to do so, you can close your eyes, or if it doesn't, you can just lower your gaze. And again, let's start with the breathing in through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. There's nowhere else you need to be right now, nothing to solve, nothing to fix, nothing to achieve. So let's just notice that the earth is holding you without effort right now. That you don't have to hold yourself up all alone. I want you to gently invite your attention inward and just see if you can bring to mind a craving that you had in the past. And we don't want it to be like a 9 or a 10. We're really looking for it to be about a 5 or a 6 intensity. We're just going to notice it with some curiosity. So, we're going to explore this craving today, not as an enemy, not as a problem, but simply as an experience. And I want you to notice, where do I feel this craving in my body? Perhaps it lives in the mouth. Maybe you notice it in your chest, maybe in your stomach. Sometimes we tense our hands. Sometimes it might be tightness in the throat. No right answer. I just want you to tune into your body and simply notice. And as you bring awareness to where it is in your body, you may discover that one giant craving is actually a collection of smaller experiences. Is there any pressure? Are you noticing any tension? Does it have a temperature? Does it have an energy about it? Is there some movement to it? I want you to see yourself as this kind of scientist studying a weather pattern. The craving is not you, it is something happening within you. So, does it have a shape? Does it have a texture? Most cravings feel permanent when we're inside them. But when we observe carefully, we begin to notice something very important. They move, they change, they rise, and they fall, sort of like waves or clouds. So we're going to take another slow breath in together through the nose and another exhale through the mouth. And as we exhale, just see if you can soften your muscles around the sensation. Not because we're trying to make it disappear, but because we're trying to make room for it. And we're just silently saying, this is a craving. This is a moment of wanting. This is difficult, and I can be with it. And I want you to just consider that this craving might just be trying to give you some information. Not what food do I need, but what do I need? Maybe it's just a part of my body that needs stretching. Maybe it's comfort. Maybe it's connection. Maybe it's safety. It could be rest. Maybe understanding. We don't need to have the answer yet. And so I wonder if just for a moment, wherever you feel that craving, if you could just place a hand on that. And if you're not sure where it is, you can also just place a hand on your heart or chest or on your stomach if that feels supportive. And I want you to feel the warmth and the pressure of your own touch. Let's just remind ourselves that a craving is a signal, it's not a command. I can feel this without acting on it. I can experience discomfort and remain safe. And let's take one final slow breath in together and a slow breath out. Noticing the strength in ourselves in this moment, and we'll gently bring ourselves back to the room. And thank you for doing this practice with us. So, we wanted to start just by kind of getting curious about cravings in general. Did anyone watch the cravings module? And did anyone have any aha moments? Does anyone have questions about cravings in general?
Or did anything come up during the practice
Through that
that
too.
you want to ask about or discuss? Go ahead, April.
Even in relating in the practice to an experience. So, what I was relating to is this past Sunday, my son and I went out for lunch and I ordered what is great food for me. Also came with it hash browns. I wanted them. It was fairly fleeting, but while I did this embodiment right now, there was an urgency again. There was a leaning forward. There was a give me. There was a cookie monster to it, more, more, more. And that energy is a self-perpetuating energy. And then taking that sit back, that reverse energy and the okay, now we're going to just breathe through it. We're going to let that crest. I could feel the lean forward energy dissipating, and the texture was a big component for me as I'm relating to this again in this re-envisioning. I wanted that texture. Okay, maybe I can have other textures. So it was neat to just watch myself shift backwards from the Cookie Monster more and the leaning in to I can sit back. I can sit back and let this crest.
Hmm. I love that because it really sounds like in that meditation, you are able to become the observer rather than like in it in that moment. Awesome, April.
Yeah, so good. So good. So what lets you know if you are having a craving? Right. So maybe some of us didn't watch the mo and that's okay too, right? Like we put that out there and we give that away for free, the first four for free. Some people just want to look at the cravings module and that's fine too. It's one of the bigger modules. I think there's three videos to that one. Um, and so it can be a lot to take in. So I'm just curious to know, like, how do you know you're having a craving? Do you feel it in your body? Do you have a thought? Is there a pattern to it?
I'll go.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Louisa. Yeah, hi.
Hi. There's a lot of different things that happen. I can definitely feel it in my body. I can taste it in my mouth. I can imagine it in my head, what the taste feels like, and I can also imagine how I'm going to feel after if I follow through on the craving. I can imagine how I'm going to feel differently than I did before I ate the whatever it was.
So you really have like a very visceral experience. It can be
Very,
very realistic for you. So it's
very.
more than just a thought. There's like a lot of senses, multiple senses that go into it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it sounds to me like what you're saying is when you encounter craving, one of the tools, or maybe the tool you use, is you like what's called like playing the tape through. Like you play the story all the way through to the end with the consequences of those actions if you were to give in to the craving.
So this is the first time I've said that and thought that through. So now maybe that's what I will do, hopefully,
Ah, got it.
as a tool.
Got it. Yes. Yeah, that's a tool that we used to use all the time in when you right when I was working with a different population, we called it playing the tape through, right? So when we like envision that whole thing, we have to like really go the whole way because our brains like to romanticize, right? It likes to really play up the pleasantries or the niceness that can come with the substance or the behavior, but we often don't like to remind ourselves of the negative consequences. And sometimes when we play it all the way through and we just go like, "Oh, wait a minute, is that actually worth it to me to feel bad, to be
Right.
depressed, to have anxiety, to feel nauseous, whatever." Then we
Yeah.
might be like, "Oh, maybe not."
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Louisa. Yeah. What else is coming up for folks? How do you know you're having a craving? And how do you cope through it? I know nobody was expecting this part of it, but what you will find with Sweet Sobriety is we are very interactive. We will give you psychoeducation. We will give you education. We're happy to do that, but it's a back and forth. It's very relational in Sweet Sobriety. Yeah. Debbie, were you raising your hand? Yeah, go ahead. Hi.
Hi. Um, so I think I'll know that a craving's coming in. It might not necessarily be particularly for something, but rather a type of thing. Like something crunchy or carby or sweet, whatever it is. And I I I think I would start to feel a bit anxious, just like that. Oh, it's a bit more anxiety provoking than anything. It's never a kind of, oh, I'm in the mood for. So I guess it escalates from somewhere.
So you're noticing there's some sort of desire for, like you said, and each situation is maybe different, it sounds like, right? But then what you find is that just brings you anxiety because the compulsion to give in to that craving just gets bigger and bigger, right, as time goes on. Is there anything that helps to make it smaller or to help you ride that out until it does kind of dissipate?
Well, with your help and been talking about it, I'm trying to do other things. If that happens and I notice it, to just intentionally do something else, whatever it is. And I made a jar, and in that jar are a whole bunch of little things to pick out to do that activity, whether it's taking a walk around the block, standing up, watching television, playing cards, whatever it is, just to, for a brief moment, break the anxious kind of go to action part with the behavior. And so, yeah, it's working.
That's amazing. Yay. How do you feel about that? Like, are you proud of yourself? Are you happy? Are you maybe, I don't know, cautiously optimistic? Something else?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic because I don't want to get bored of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want it to
Yes.
be like, okay, did that next, now I don't want to do that anymore. So, a lot of times I'm just leaving the space. I'm just, because I work from home, it means that everything's accessible here. So what I'll do is I'll just get up and leave my house. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, keep doing it because it's working. And then if it begins to not work, then we make the adjustment, right? We get flexible with our thinking. The goal doesn't change. How we get there might have to. And then we'll cross that bridge when we get there for sure. Thank you so much for being willing to share that. Thank you so much to everybody who shared so far. So let's jump into a bit of that. Like Clarissa has some amazing information for us. About cravings. So whenever you're ready.
I will just share my screen here. And uh, Hold on one second. Technical difficulties.
It's all good.
There we go. Okay. Everyone can see the screen? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So at Sweet Sobriety, we talk a lot about triggers. Stress can trigger cravings, poor sleep can trigger cravings, loneliness can trigger cravings, certain foods can trigger cravings, environmental cues can trigger cravings. So tonight, I just also want to suggest that there might be something else we're not talking about enough, and that might be hormonal shifts can trigger cravings too. And we at Sweet Sobriety take the approach that cravings are information. Most women have been taught, I need to get rid of all my cravings in order to be in recovery. And that's just not reality, right? And so, what happens if that's our core belief is if a craving shows up, then I'm going to believe that this is some kind of weakness, maybe a lack of discipline, maybe proof that this isn't working for me. And we really want to challenge that idea and say, what if cravings are not evidence that something's wrong with you, but what if it's just information? So, what if these are just messages coming from our brain, our body, our nervous system, even our emotional world that is trying to get our attention? So I like to think of them as that check engine light that comes on in your car, right? Most of us never think, look at the dashboard and think, oh, my car is so weak, right? That's not what we're thinking. Like, my car should be better than this. I mean, some of us might think that. But we're not usually like, oh, my car is failing because the check engine light's on. It's not a moral situation here. The light is not the problem. The light is the information about the problem. So it's trying to tell us that something here needs our attention. And we believe cravings work much in the same way. So the craving is rarely the problem. The craving is pointing us towards the problem. And so the question becomes, what is this craving trying to tell me? Because different cravings give different messages. Sometimes the craving might say, I need fuel. Sometimes, and that might be, oh, I skipped lunch, right? Or maybe I'm not eating enough protein. Or maybe my blood sugar is a little bit unstable. Maybe my body's just asking for nourishment. Sometimes the craving might say, I'm bored. And so it's looking for stimulation. It's, looking for dopamine. Sometimes the craving might be saying, I need safety. And so maybe nervous system is overwhelmed. Stress is high, cortisol is high. And sometimes, the craving might just be saying, my hormones have changed. And so maybe I'm in perimenopause or menopause, my estrogen has dropped. And so now I'm just in a little bit more vulnerable place than I have before. So we can also think of cravings like a smoke alarm, right? It can be loud, it can be super uncomfortable, it's always going to grab our attention, but the goal isn't to smash the alarm, right? The goal is to say, what's the alarm telling me? There's a fire, I need to get out. And the same is true in recovery. So instead of fighting ourselves, we're going to really encourage you to start listening to yourself. And something I often ask in Sweet Sobriety is, if this craving could speak a full sentence to you, what would it say? Rarely is it's really trying to say, I want chocolate. Most of the time, it's going to sound a little bit more like, I'm exhausted and I need a break, or I feel lonely and I want connection, or I'm overwhelmed and I need support. And so we are going to talk about that today, just a little bit about the many faces of cravings because there's so many different kinds. And hopefully this will start to bring some awareness to the cravings that you resonate with having most of the time. So the first one is a physical craving. And what we have found is a lot of the time people get really frustrated is they try to use the wrong tool for the wrong craving. So if I'm physically hungry, urge surfing is not going to help. If I'm lonely, eating protein is not going to fix that. If I'm in my maybe late luteal phase and dopamine is crashing, a positive mantra may not be the thing that I need in that moment. So, understanding which craving shows up is going to help us respond more effectively. So, the first craving we're going to talk about is physical cravings. These occur in the body, they're often biological imbalance, and it's usually to meet a physiological need. And so, unlike an emotional or psychological cravings, these are actually originating in the body and not the mind. And these usually show up in those early withdrawal days. So I'm just trying to cut out sugar, flour, ultra processed foods. And that's kind of that early abstinence period. It up if I've been eating and my blood sugar is in state unstable, if I am sleep deprived, if I've been under eating, or maybe I've been experimenting with fasting, if maybe I'm just not eating enough at meals. And it's really just our body's way of signaling I need nourishment, I need rest, I need hydration, and I need recovery. So, some common signs that these might be what's happening is, if I'm having a craving, it might actually be my stomach is growling. I might start to feel a little shaky or lightheaded. I might really have low energy. And now this does come with withdrawal symptoms, anyways. Um, I might notice irritability, also a withdrawal symptom, increased thoughts about food, but I'm just kind of feeling physically depleted. And so the thoughts might be like, I feel weak. And so when this happens, the right recovery response is going to be a physical response. I might eat my planned meal, make sure I'm prioritizing some protein. I'm going to hydrate. I'm going to focus on sleep, and I'm going to stabilize blood sugar through eating like whole foods. And maybe I'm going to address some of the withdrawal symptoms with some electrolytes, glutamine, etc. And so here we are, physical cravings need physical solutions. So that's the first type. Hedonic craving. So this is something that is that I want pleasure. And these are driven by the brain's reward system rather than physical hunger. And hedonic comes from the concept of pleasure. Although, we are just triggered and wired biologically to given for these things. And so often what happens is the brain is seeking stimulation, excitement, reward, novelty. And unlike physical cravings, this would be a situation where the body doesn't physically need food. In fact, we may have recently eaten and we might be completely full. And so this is not coming from an empty stomach, it's from a brain that often wants a dopamine boost. And so what's happening is dopamine is that learning and motivation kind of neurotransmitter. And so it's driving us towards the thing. When April was talking, pulling towards is kind of, this isn't out of physical hunger, this is out of desire. And so when these can end up showing up a lot is we just kind of are seeking something that is very stimulating. It might be something new, commonly in the food industry, they're always bringing out new foods, like different colors, different whatever. And it's like, I don't know, it's like a full-time job for them and they know that that's how they hook us. I mean, they are experts at this. It can also be if I'm feeling celebration or excitement, that often is associated as well. Some common thoughts might be, I want a treat, I deserve something, I need something fun, I want excitement, I want to reward myself. And these, you notice, like none of these thoughts are actually about hunger. they're about pleasure. And so these types of cravings show up usually for people. It could be during ovulation if you're still cycling, boredom. For people with ADHD, these are the types of cravings that end up showing up a lot for them. It can be after accomplishing a goal, maybe a celebration or a special occasion, like I said, a vacation, or when life is just feeling really dull and I want kind of a little bit of a zip of something. And so this is that hedonic craving. And the recovery response in this, situation, the question really becomes, what reward am I actually seeking? Because once we identify the need, we can look for healthier ways to get what we're looking for. So instead of that, donut or whatever it is, maybe it's movement, maybe it's connecting with a friend, maybe it's doing something creative, music, nature, learning something new. Could be going on an adventure, doing something a little scary, or just a meaningful accomplishment. And I think one of the most important lessons in recovery is recognizing that many women return to use with food not when they're feeling bad, but when they're feeling good. And then the brain starts to say, let's make this feel even better, or we don't want this good feeling to end. And so, a simple way to help people identify a hedonic craving is to say, if I ate a hard boiled egg or a plain chicken breast, would this craving disappear? And if that's not the thing you want, this is not physical hunger, and it's likely a hedonic craving. The next craving is a psychological craving. And people often report, my mind won't stop talking about this. And these are different from physical hunger and different from a desire for pleasure. They often occur in the mind, and their experience of it is what we hear now as food noise. Right. And so I'm having lots of thoughts about food and eating and what should I eat? And that thing would be nice. And this is often what leads to like the return to some of our old behaviors. And so people call it like the mental obsession. I've heard them call it the addictive voice, or addict brain. And these are, unlike physical craving, this is not something that happens in the body. It's often in our thoughts, and that can be tricky, right? Because our thoughts can sometimes sound very reasonable. They can sound very logical and even convincing. So, what's happening at this time in our brain is the brain is just trying to justify to return to a behavior that once worked well for it. And it may have given it comfort, relief, or an escape. And so the brain remembers how well this food works. And then it starts creating stories and arguments and negotiations so that we move towards getting that thing. And so, some thoughts that might show up with this type of craving is maybe this time it'll be different, right? I can always start again tomorrow. One won't hurt. I'm sure I've got this time. I've been doing so well, or this isn't a big deal. And so, again, what we're looking for in the characteristics of this is those repetitive thoughts, that kind of bargaining, maybe fantasies about food. Molly talked about that romanticizing, selective memory, right? We only remember the really good things. It's like that euphoric recall we call. And then we notice we have a difficulty focusing on anything else. And that's what most of our clients will report is like, honestly, I just had to eat the thing so I could get on with the rest of my day because I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so in this situation, we really want to identify what it is. That's going to be the recovery response. So if you're imagining somebody who's been maybe abstinent for 6 months and maybe they walk past a bakery and then they immediately think, wow, that smells amazing. I've been so good. One treat isn't going to ruin everything. I can get back on this tomorrow. Now the craving has moved beyond the food and the real battle is happening in our mind. So the goal here, again, we don't want to argue with the thought. We just want to recognize it for what it is. Oh, these thoughts are cravings. As soon as we name it, it immediately brings nervous system down. And we can say, this is my food addiction talking. And oh, this is that mental obsession showing up. Cognitive diffusion is we're going to put some distance between that thought and myself. So I notice I'm having the thought that I want to eat that baked good. And what that's doing is I'm naming that it's a thought and giving some distance to it. Another thing that Louisa was sharing, play the tape forward, right? So we really want to think what happens next? What happens after I eat that thing? Because what our brain is only going to be focused on is eating the thing. It's going to ignore the next 5 days. And then we want to interrupt the rumination that's happening. So if this is in my mind, I need to now move my body. I need to change environment. Maybe I'm going to call someone. Maybe I'm going to focus and engage my mind on something else. I'm really going to break the loop before it starts to gain momentum. The next type of craving is an emotional craving. And this is something that many of us experience. And the common statement is, I don't want to feel. So, emotional cravings often occur because food does become the way to manage, avoid, numb, distract, and soothe from these very difficult emotions. And here, unlike physical craving, the body's not asking for nourishment. And unlike hedonic cravings, it's not just like wired to like get reward, pleasure, or like, cope in that immediate situation. Emotional cravings are really, I need this food to change the way that I feel. That's, I think, probably the best way to describe it. So, food is now the way I emotionally regulate. And so, what happens when we have emotions is they really create discomfort in the body. So, when we're doing that embodied meditation, anxiety can sometimes feel like tension in my chest, and grief sometimes feels heavy or empty. Loneliness can feel like aches in the body. And if it's shame, it may just feel like I can't even be in my body. And so, food can temporarily change these sensations by activating the reward pathways and starting to just reduce the awareness of emotional pain. And food in general puts us in a more parasympathetic and peaceful state. And so some of the most common emotional triggers are the ones that I named, but rejection, disappointment, conflict, feeling unseen, all of these can be emotional triggers. And so the thoughts might be, I need some comfort. This one I hear a lot is I can't deal with this right now. That's a very common one. I just want to feel better, or I just need a break from this. And these thoughts are less about food and more, if what you're hearing, they are more a desire to escape the emotional discomfort I'm experiencing. So imagining you've had a difficult conversation with a loved one, right? You might feel hurt, disappointed. An hour later, you find yourself in the kitchen looking for something to eat, right? This isn't about hunger. It's not about, like not like fear of the conversation. It's already been had. Now it's just trying to soothe the emotional wound. So the recovery response in this situation is we're going to ask ourselves, what feeling am I trying not to feel? And then what would support this emotional need? And some of the tools we have here are self-compassion, journaling. You might have a support group you could reach out to. You might even have a one-to-one therapist. There's also somatic work. Again, just tuning in to the body. And then we have habitual cravings. I know you're like, there's more. Oh, there's more. And this is why cravings are so tough. So habitual cravings, and that shows up when it's like, this is the thing I just always do. At 3 o'clock, I watch TV and I have that snack. And so habitual cravings are not driven by hunger, they're not driven by emotions, they're not even driven by pleasure. It's purely repetition. So our brain is designed to conserve energy. When we repeat a behavior often enough, the brain starts to create the shortcut. And this is super helpful for things like brushing my teeth or driving my car. But when it comes to food related behaviors, it becomes a big problem because now it's like this autopilot and we're just running this familiar program. And so over time, what's happened is we call this like the habit loop, right? There's a cue, there's a craving, response, and reward. So the cue triggers the anticipation creates craving, and the craving drives the behavior, and the behavior drives the reward. So this is just what we do. And some examples are every time I go to the movie, I have popcorn. Every time it's 3 o'clock, I just have that snack. Every time right before bed, I need something. It's just I'm in the kitchen and I'm feeling snacky. And so these are often just habitual cravings. And so, imagine if you're somebody who eats cookies or something every night while watching TV. After months or years of repetition, I just turn on the TV and I immediately have the craving for cookies. So I'm not hungry. I'm not upset. I don't even maybe want the cookies. I wasn't thinking about cookies, but turning on the TV has now created the craving. So TV equals cookies, and then that sets me up. Another example I like to think of is, have you ever driven home and suddenly found yourself like, whoa, like pulling into somewhere where you didn't intend to go, or you get home and you're like, how did I get here? Like, I don't really remember the whole drive here. That's exactly what's happening here for so many of us. If we just are on autopilot and we're not being mindful in our lives. So, one of the ways we start to work with this is we change the routine. So, if at 3 o'clock I'm always in one place and I'm always having one snack, I need to be somewhere else. Maybe I go for a walk now at 3 o'clock. Or if, I always am watching TV before bed and eating these cookies, now I'm going to not watch TV and maybe I'm going to go to bed and read a book. And just, again, I'm changing the routine. Another thing is I can interrupt the cue. So if I want to eat, maybe I make sure I eat at the table instead of watching television. And, if I always snack after work, maybe I'm going to take a walk before I enter the kitchen. And these can change those automatic patterns. And then we want to just practice a new response. So, we again are going to learn through repetition, just like we learned this, we can unlearn. The brain is plastic, which is very exciting for recovery. And so it's really just important to remember that these habitual cravings are often the least emotional, but they are the most automatic. Then we have situational cravings. So this is where a particular environment is going to maybe wake up the addiction we hear. So this might be a certain person, a certain place, a certain event, a certain time, and that becomes associated with the food or eating behaviors. And over time, the brain learns that these environments are connected with the substance. So simply returning to the environment can trigger the craving, even if I'm not physically hungry. So the brain, again, what's happening? The brain is always creating associations. So if a particular situation always includes food, the brain is going to learn to anticipate again that thing that we love. And so some places where this is going to happen is if we go to our favorite restaurants or on a vacation, right? Often on a vacation, we're exposed to some new things. Family gatherings, being home alone is often a trigger for this. Airports, clients tend to report, can be really tricky. Work events or conferences. And so, again, just as an example, imagine you attend a hockey game and every hockey game you've attended for years, it's like, they never have delicious food at hockey games. I'm just going to say that out loud. Like it is what, like a hockey, like a pogo stick, like nachos. Like I'm always starving when I go to these places. And I'm like, fortunately I go out for a nice steak ahead of time. So this is what anytime I go to a hockey game equals food. Again, now the situation is creating the craving. And so our recovery response for this needs to be I need to plan ahead. I need to expect that this situation is going to be activating for me. So I'm going to take care of myself. And maybe I bring some food, or maybe I go out for that meal before. I'm going to want to have an exit strategy. And so maybe that is knowing how and when I'll leave if my cravings start to become overwhelming. And, also sometimes just giving ourselves permission to leave is enough. And then maybe if I'm worried I'm not going to be strong enough, I'm going to have an accountability partner and I'm going to let somebody know my plan, or maybe somebody I'm going with ahead of time. And then or I might reach out to a recovery buddy. And then there's the stress craving. Don't worry, there's only two more. But you see why these are so tough, right? So in the stress craving, what's happening is my nervous system wants relief. Stress cravings often deserve, I feel, their own category because they're often mistaken for hunger, emotional eating, or kind of people say, oh, this was a lack of willpower. In reality, the nervous system is overwhelmed. It's just in survival. So it's desperately seeking relief. The craving's not necessarily for food, it is for regulation. So food just becomes the fastest thing that gets me to regulation. And so when the body has stress, it moves into survival mode. And so now my stress hormones are going up and my nervous system is activated. And now cortisol's going up, the sympathetic nervous system's firing up, impulsivity increases, my urges increase as well. And when this happens, it's so hard to pause. And if we can't pause, it's really hard to make intentional choices. And so the thoughts around here is like, I need relief. I can't do this anymore. I don't care. I just want something, is often what people will say in those situations. And some of these triggers will often be work deadlines, relationship conflict, financial stress is a big one, caregiving responsibilities, people's own health concerns or health concerns that people they love. Perfectionism, this is another one. And so here the recovery response is really that we just need to get really clear on like, what does my nervous system need right now? And so some helpful tools here, which we will talk a lot more about in foundations, are our tip skills, is breath work, because breath regulates body better than almost anything. Maybe it's walking, stretching, nature, and nervous system regulation practices. And sometimes it's just asking for help. And then we have connection craving. And so this is when I just need belonging. So connection cravings are one of the most, I think, overlooked and misunderstood types of craving. A lot of people think they're craving food when really they're craving something so much deeper. It might be connection, it might be meaning and purpose, right? I want to be seen, I want to be understood. And often that feels soothing because I just want to, at the end of the day, we all want to be loved. As humans, we are wired for connection, and our nervous systems regulate through relationship. And this is why, as Molly said, sweet sobriety is a relational model. And that's why Foundations is too. And so, some examples of when this craving might be showing up is I find myself eating alone at night. I'm always eating when I'm lonely, eating when I feel rejected, maybe eating if I feel misunderstood or eating if someone that I care about is going out and I'm left alone. And so in this situation, the recovery response is really going to be, how can I get connected to somebody and be open and honest about what's going on? And if I can't, how can I be compassionate with myself right now for what's going on? And then the final craving we're going to talk about is just hormonal craving. So our neurochemistry has changed. And as someone who is in the emotional roller coaster of perimenopause, and in group today, I was talking about this and I was like, wee, and nobody was feeling that way about perimenopause, right? We're all like, when does it end? I can't take it anymore. And this makes sense when we really start to understand that hormonal cravings are often misunderstood. They really haven't been studied that much. And like, so women's substance use disorder and addiction recovery has really been, I feel, dismissed. And so we want to start talking about this a little bit more. We're not talking about reproductive hormones. So here we're talking about estrogen, we're talking about progesterone, and how those hormones affect our neurotransmitters. And what we're talking about here is dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and GABA. And they fluctuate over time and they're neurobiological. And so the recovery response here might be that just need more compassion and understanding for where I'm at right now. Because what I was talking about in group today is if all of a sudden my dopamine is down, so I have no motivation, and my serotonin is down, so I'm feeling anxious and depressed, and now I have no endorphins, which are my natural feel good, and then I have no breaks, which is GABA, which is the calming neurotransmitter. Of course, I'm going to use food, right? He's like, we are just way more vulnerable when those biological things are going on for us. And so starting to explore that, get a better idea of maybe this is what's causing your craving. So that was a lot. I understand it was a lot, but recovery is a lot. And we have I know, I've always been told I have a lot to say in a good way.
So we really would love to open it up to questions at this point. If there are any questions about cravings, different types of cravings, tools that we can use. Again, maybe as you were listening to Clarissa explain the different kinds of cravings, you realize, oh, that's something I've been struggling with, or that's a pattern for me. I didn't know what it was. Do you guys have any guidance? Um, we're here for that. So we just want to give everybody the opportunity. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Marcia, and I would like to express my gratitude for your presentation, both of you. And Clarissa, I've been around the block a few times. I'm older, you can see the gray hair, postmenopausal, but food addiction has been present in my life. And what you shared, Clarissa, it just put it in perspective, the different kinds of cravings. And although I identified with each and every one of them, certain ones stood out. And I'm very interested in joining what's coming up because my motto is never, ever, ever give up. There's always
Mm.
hope. And you've given me hope with this, and I look forward to connection. I listened to your podcast, the two Molly's and Clarissa. I actually did Molly's group back in 2023. So
Awesome, Marcia. Well, welcome. We're excited.
it is awesome. I just haven't gotten this thing, and I can't give up because there's so much in life, and the food addiction has really I gave into cravings earlier today. And so, but like I said, I have hope. I have new hope, never to give up. And, if I don't try, I'll never know. And so, to get out of that hopeless state. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate this presentation because, like I said, I've been around and I haven't seen it presented this way. And I thank you.
Oh, awesome, Marcia. And yeah, like we always say, if you don't have hope for you, we will hold the hope for you because we have gotten to witness so many people change and we know recovery is possible. And when we look at the recovery outcome research, it's very positive. It's not this idea that, what does they always say, like once you're an apple or whatever? What do they say
Oh,
that?
once you're a pickle, always a pickle.
No, that's not true. That doesn't even understand, like, start to understand neuroplasticity and how much change is possible and how much we believe that in each of you that change is possible.
So thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Go ahead, Julia.
Okay. I was kind of wondering about oh, I don't know why my video isn't working. Sorry. I
That's
turned it on.
okay.
Um, okay, I was wondering, like for my cravings, I wrote like making pizza, like dough, like the which I can't really eat because it just spikes my blood sugar high. But one thing that I miss about it is just and I wonder if you have any ideas or suggestions. It's like I miss kind of the smell of like making of my addictive substance, like say pizza dough, like the way that it makes my house smell and just that like cozy feeling. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, for me, that's like definitely craving. Right? That's just another form of craving and another way to say, like, oh, well, if it's just potentially the smell, then it can't be that bad. And then we can probably do it. But access alone often is enough to use. And so, and I will also sometimes have clients say, like, in the house, in my mouth. And so, in foundations, we actually do a lot of like grieving around this. And we'll do actually a grief letter about some of this because this is very emotional, right? I remember, too, like the smell of cookies, right? Or that favorite thing at Christmas or whatever it is. And I just want to acknowledge that there is another side of this that this we find more in early recovery, but when people go further along, it's like, oh, I can recognize that now as a craving, but like, I don't really miss that. That wasn't really something that mattered to me. Like, what matters to me is the time that I get to spend with my children at dinner while they're eating the pizza versus the smell of the pizza in general. Does that make sense, Julia? And
Yes,
Molly?
thank you.
Yeah, I would even say too. So if a smell, right, it doesn't have to be Julia's example, but if there is a smell that like you associate with comfort, with whatever, but it's also tied to something that is activating for you. So now here come the cravings, and now I can't stop thinking about the thing. Experiment with other smells, right? What would it be like instead of, envisioning our house smelling like baked goods? What would it be like to slice an apple in half, sprinkle some cinnamon on it, and throw that in the oven with some water or some lemon juice in a pie pan on really low just to have that smell going, if that's a safe smell? Or, creating like scents throughout the house. Like maybe you have like, I don't know, there's all different kinds of things these days, like Scentsy and Pink Zebra and whatever. Like you can get candles and not light them and just put them like on a warmer and then they'll give off smell. Essential oils, right? Like what would it be like to experiment? Maybe peppermint is a more soothing smell, or lavender or chamomile, right? So even like thinking like teas, um, that kind of thing. So I think we have a lot of, to Clarissa's point, there's a lot of grieving that does happen in foundations because we have a lot of stories tied to the food, which makes sense when we think about going back to like survival period, right? We're brand new babies. There's smell, there's touch, there's eye contact, there's all sorts of oxytocin exploding in our brains, as tiny little babies, and that's meant to connect for survival. Right. And so if we can find different ways, we don't necessarily have to give up our house smelling a certain way, but what would it be like to play with that in a different way? Yeah, just things that I like to think about too. Yeah, totally. Did anybody else have
Very
anything?
good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Please let us know if any of that if you need support around that in any other way, if none of those work. We've got all kinds of ideas. Yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
I mean, this is more of a sort of an administrative question, but I signed up for foundations and then life happened and I didn't get to do it last time. If you sign up for it, um, can you do it again or can you get a different, a less
Yeah,
expensive rate? Or
you
how's
don't
it
pay
work?
for you don't pay for it. So you just pay it for one time.
Okay,
And then anytime we run live sessions,
right.
you're welcome to join. No charge.
Okay, okay. And you're starting another contingency now or
Yep.
soon?
Yep. And
Okay,
yep,
okay.
I'll pop some slides up here in just a second. But yes, absolutely. So we're starting Tuesday, June 16th with the
Okay,
next
great,
session. Yeah,
great. That works out. Thank you.
you bet. Great question. So if we're feeling like we're ready to move on to that, let's do that really quick. Um, so just a really quick overview of foundations. It is 81 or so unique tools and skills. There are 12 modules, different categories. This is just the breakdown, right? There's all kinds of workbooks and worksheets. There are tools and skills and techniques. There are planning tools. There are resources. There are practices. Um, there's assessment and screening in our introductory model. For anybody who's wondering, where do I land on that? Or if you're wanting to take the inventory at the beginning and then take it again at the end to see your symptoms decrease. That's another really fun thing to do. And this time they've talked me into, so last time I ran foundations, I accidentally picked like I accidentally said 13, well I said 12 weeks, but the date that I told him was the last one was actually 13 weeks, and so we used that last week as kind of this like final whatever, and so they've asked me to do that again, so I'm going to do that again, where we will 12 weeks for all of this. But if you want to come for the 13th week, and maybe we'll talk about that, right? Maybe we'll have everybody do that inventory again at the end and just have a discussion about where we're at with that. So this is just kind of a breakdown of what you're looking at with foundations. So then we broke it down a bit by each module. So the introductory module, again, you're going to get the MY FAS, and you're going to learn about how to score it, but also like what that means for you, and then that bridges you right into food addiction syndrome and mindful eating. Mindful eating is the very first skill we want to give you because mindful eating is really, really, really foundational. Yes, I'm going to keep using that word because so often so many of us have fear of food. We have a belief that once we start we can't stop. Oftentimes as we're getting sober in the food, that still applies no matter what food it is, and it's because we are mindlessly eating because we want to get through it as quickly as possible. We just want to change our state. If we're anxious or upset or whatever, we just want to change it. So we want to make that happen as quickly as possible. So mindful eating is in there. We also offer some food plans from which you get to then define and decide what your food plan is because we are non-prescriptive. We are not dietitians. We are not nutritionists. And let's face it, you already know what to eat and what not to eat by the time that you get to someplace like this. You already know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. We take you into abstinence and withdrawal. We give you like a withdrawal tracker. We walk you through what that is going to look like and how to get support through that, right into craving management and recovery management. And we talk about recovery management so early on because we need to have an idea of what we're working toward, right? And this sets us apart from just another weight loss. This is not just a, hey, come do 30 days detox, 30-day weight loss challenge, any of that. We really need to look at what kinds of things need to go into my every day, every week, every month, every whatever quarter to make sure that I'm okay. And again, lots of skills in there. We move into cross addiction because oftentimes what we find is that it probably started with the food years ago, just because it's the most accessible thing that we have as little people, or at much younger ages. It then morphs into other substances. Those other substances cause bigger, more severe problems more quickly in our life. And so we let those go. And then pretty soon we find, oh, there's the food again, right? And so that module really takes us through understanding that and how not to play the game of whack-a-mole and why it is so important that we do continue to work through the Foundations program. Then we like to give you a little bit of hope and resilience. We're like, yes, we've gotten through abstinence or initial abstinence with the craving and withdrawal, and you've learned more about like, hey, to be on the lookout for these other outlets to start showing themselves. Let's give you a little bit of hope, a little bit of resilience, how to build that, how to really bolster that and increase it. And because then we start getting into the modules that are like that 90% of the iceberg we can't see, right? The 10% of the iceberg we can see is the things that we're eating. We see the weight on our bodies, if that's one of our symptoms. We see the size on our pants, the number on the scale, whatever it might be. But now we're getting into the 90% of the iceberg that's driving it. And this is why we do not charge for you to do it over and over and over again, because this is peeling the layers of the onion. People do this multiple times. You both heard CJ and Elaine say they've done it multiple times. Clarissa and I don't even know at this point how many times we've been through it. But it's for this purpose, because it is going to be like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. There's a lot of information, and it comes at you even at once a week. It's pretty fast. So distress and tolerance. So learning how to manage our distress. So when we are in that hyper aroused place and we're like in fight or flight, how do we manage that so that the flooding can recede, so that we can show up with a wiser mind and make better decisions? Right into stress management, with workbooks and worksheets there, into emotional management, emotional eating, and then into building self-compassion, because we are big believers in self-compassion at Sweet Sobriety. Self-compassion literally is the antidote to shame, and shame is so often a major driver in what gets us or keeps us stuck in that cycle, or can like be the pathway back into that cycle if we have found ourselves in recovery. And then we move into toward body neutrality. So many of us are in body hatred. We would never ask you to go to body positivity, but if we can just get to this neutral place so that we are not constantly hating our body and being so focused there that we lose sight of recovery in general, how can we stop beating ourselves up, picking ourselves apart, and increasing shame? Instead, how can we build with using some of those distress tolerance skills, stress management, emotional management, self-compassion to get to this body neutrality place? And finally, we end with spirituality, because not all of us are in that place that are ready to go to that side of it right away. But we do know, even like we are clinicians, right? Like Clarissa and I have education and training and many, 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 many hours of doing this. And we know that this is a biopsychosocial spiritual disorder. And spirituality means different things to different people, and it's just an introduction. All of these things are just introductions. Dip your toes, but you can go back and make them as deep as you need to be. So those are your 12 modules. I know it says module 11 here, but that's because the first one is intro. So what you will get is 12 modules, those 81 unique tools, those worksheets, workbooks, reference guides, coping skills, the assessment. It's all yours. We've had people download them and like send them to Staples and have them like bound into workbooks so that they can work along with them. We have people who print them off and 3-hole punch them and keep them in a binder. We have people who don't do that at all, and that's okay too. It is yours. Do with it what you want. We are starting Tuesday, June 16th. It will be at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, 5 p.m. UK. It will be 12 weeks or 13 if you decide to come to the 13th week. It is an hour and a half or 90 minutes per session, and it is $400. If you have not purchased foundations, that is the price of our program. It is $400, but then, like I said, it gets you all of that. Plus, then anytime we run those live sessions, and as you heard people do it 5, 6 times, you're always welcome to join us with those future cohorts. So that is all that I had for you, except for one more question, which is if you're a person who is here and you've been on the fence, you've been thinking about joining foundations, but you haven't done that yet, is there any missing piece of information? Like, what is it that you still need to hear or understand before you feel confident you can make a decision for sure, one way or the other?
Can you just clarify how many of these, I know they're modules, but how many are actually live on Zoom with you?
So we do no psychoeducation live on Zoom. All the psychoeducation is in the modules. So once you purchase that, if you want to watch videos, if you want to have the slides, all of that, that is there. When you come to the live sessions, it's all process. So we start every session with an embodied practice of some kind. Sometimes it would be like us facilitating it. Sometimes we use things off of right from other resources because we want to expose you to different types of meditations and breath work, different lengths, that kind of thing. And then we get into answering questions about the module. Oftentimes people in their process, right? It's like, oh, this thing connects to this thing, connects to this thing. So we start talking about all kinds of things that aren't even in the module, which is why Foundations is so fun because you can take it over and over and over again, and it's always different because of the people who come to those cohort sessions. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, so if you're coming and hoping just for like slides, that's all done with right with the pre-recorded stuff. If you're but this when we do the live sessions, it kind of combines the best of both worlds. You get access to that, and then you can come and we get to talk about it and discuss it. Yeah, totally. Great question. Because that does throw people off sometimes when they come and they're like, wait, no slides? I'm like, no. And for 90 minutes, we're all very interactive. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think
Yeah. It's,
what's great too is because then people get to know each other and then
yes.
like they have their own kind of little community as well.
Yes, absolutely. Those cohorts do become pretty tight.
And there's
Um,
a WhatsApp group as
yep,
well.
yep, yeah, exactly. So we do have a private WhatsApp group for Foundations members only. It's not super active. It tends to be a little more active when we're in the middle, right, of doing those live sessions, and then it gets a little quiet. I think it's because people like they have their groups separate from.
Yeah.
Yep, and they're doing that. But it's always a place where no matter, whether we're running 12-week sessions or not, if you have a need for support or a question or whatever, you're always welcome to that WhatsApp chat and we will respond. Yeah. Yep. Also, another thing that I offer with foundations is anybody who purchases foundations is then also eligible to work with me one-on-one. I mean, anybody can work with me one-on-one. That's fine, but you're eligible to work with me one-on-one for a greatly reduced price, and I only give that greatly reduced price to foundations members. So it's 6 30-minute individual sessions for $300 US, which is normally 480. So it's a pretty good discount. And I do that just because what we know is that the more support that we have in those 12 weeks and then continued support after that, right? This is where we saw our data, the efficacy of our program really shine was the more support that was offered and the more opportunities that people took for that support, the better outcomes they had at 12 months out from program. So we had a 62%, I guess like success rate, if you want to call it that. Not that it's such a gross way to put it because I don't think anybody else was failure. Like, the other percentage of people were not failures, but what we had was of the people who went through the program and followed up with us a year out, 62% of people. So we still had over 100 respondents by the time we were a year out, which is super cool.
Is it like
62.
a retention rate? Is that like
Yeah, well, 62% of people still were seeing a decrease in symptoms and an increase in overall well-being.
yeah. So they were
So,
still participating, they were still doing the programs, which is interesting because we were just looking at another program today with a 12-month follow-up, and essentially
it
there
was
was
bleak.
back to, yeah. And what we find in the eating disorder world is the treatment outcomes are not not as positive. And I think what happens again is that people don't continue to get support. They have the 10-week intervention and then they're like, okay, I'm fixed. And what happens is we need that ongoing continual support for years. It doesn't need to be as intense, right? But it's like I always will say to people, like, if it was, a chronic disease, maybe it was I had cancer show up again, I'm going to treat it acutely, and like maybe I'm going to go and have like chemo or whatever, and then the symptoms go into remission. This is very much like addiction recovery too, is that the symptoms are not always going to be acute in recovery, but when they do, we need to have an appropriate treatment plan for them.
Yep, exactly. The intervention should always match the severity. Yeah, absolutely.
How
Yeah.
many of you who are therapists, there's four of you, how many of you will be involved in this?
So I'll be the main facilitator for this time. CJ is going to be there shadowing because so she already runs group for us. CJ is already doing that. But she's going to shadow me to, and then when we do it again, I will just be there in the background and she'll be there. So CJ and I for sure. And then I think there will be some other people, and we'll have more of that information the closer we get there to have some like confirmed numbers. Um, but yes, we will have like there will be plenty of people to answer questions, that kind of thing, and offer different perspectives. And Elaine has done it multiple times. So Elaine, she does her own thing. We don't worry about Elaine. Um, plus it's summer. She doesn't want to come join. She wants to go hiking. But yeah, so there will be at least two of us, if not three or four
I think there's
total.
probably going to be four.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. Probably going to be four. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. April, did you were like, I got something.
Just gonna plug the community. It does. It makes such a difference. It really does. There's a negative phrase that I flipped for this in, I'm sure you've heard the bad company corrupts good character.
Mm.
The opposite is so exactly the positive truth that when we connect with each other, and that happens so well in foundations, and then you carry that on afterwards. You may not stay in touch with all, maybe you'll have 10 people, 20 people in foundations, but you may not stay in touch with all of them, but you stay in touch with five of them.
Mhm.
And it really, those connections really help so much. They really forge a strength base. And then when you're in the room with the, maybe 20, however many people it is, just hearing, goodness, she's reading my mail. Oh my God, me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's me too. Those connections, that the freedom that comes out of hearing your story out of somebody else's mouth just takes a lot of, we talked earlier about the shame being such a thing that keeps us in the problem. When you hear it and you see each other and you see the successes that each other are getting and you're staying connected with these people, there's nothing like it. The community totally changes the way you interact with hopefully with yourself, and now you have other people to interact with. I really enjoy the community here so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
April.
April. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's my favorite part too. It is. The people are my favorite part.
It's what
Absolutely.
makes it. Yeah.
It is what makes it. Yeah, totally. Okay. Well, if there isn't anything else. We won't continue to keep you. We just appreciate each and every one of you for being here and being willing to ask the questions, being willing to share, being willing to just be curious about this and could it be for you. So the replay will be up as soon as possible. We start Tuesday the 16th. So Cravings is module 3. If this was go check that out if you haven't. If that is of any interest to you and you want to see more, yeah, you may want to join us. So please just let us know if there's anything we can do, any more questions we can answer, any of that. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much
Yeah, thank
and have a
you.
great rest of the day. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
If you like what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.